Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Talk Today. Trying it again new, remotely, and see how it works, but have the excellent company of one of our hosts from Money Sense, Mr. Simon Cordray, joining us. So please, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile. Saving lives today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email Talk Today at candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us as we be a part of the discussion of the excellent company of Mr. Simon Cordray joining us. Hey, good afternoon, Simon. How are you today? Hey, Simon?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I hope so. And I'm just checking, are you able to hear me okay as well?
I can hear you absolutely perfectly, thank you, yeah.
Okay, great stuff, man. This is the start. So we're both remotely for listeners' point of view, but it doesn't mean that we can't have an engaging, informative discussion, hopefully get our people involved and interested. So thank you, first off the bat, for sharing with us, and I trust and pray that you and all are equally safe and well. Now, Simon, from this perspective, as we look at where we are now, two quick questions. You think, first off, I know you and some others have raised sort of the flag in the early part of the year. How foreseeable do you think where we are now was, 3 months ago, 2 months ago?
Oh, well, that's an interesting one, isn't it? I suspect not very, because we are in such an unprecedented situation economically that when you think about what commentators and policymakers around the world are doing, they're sort of using the analogy of the financial crisis in 10 years ago as the situation of example to see how we could respond to this. But of course, it's fundamentally different. That was a financial crisis. This is a public health crisis. And we don't really have, in modern times, a good example of how a country and then multiple countries should respond to something like this. If it's an isolated situation, you can clearly see examples in history, but we just don't have something in modern history of pandemic-type nature, and it's difficult to know what the correct policy response could be. First of all, it's difficult to know what the policy response options are. And then it's very difficult to know what the correct policy response should be. The options are one thing, but actually knowing what the correct one is really difficult. And let me give you an example of that. If you say that the problem is, which clearly there is a problem right now, which is people aren't spending any money because of things are closed and because they have lost jobs and such like. If the correct stimulus to that is to a Keynesian type of approach of putting money in people's pockets, so you allow people to have income from the government. You see in the States, in the UK, France, Australia, you see lots of income support schemes being enacted. And in Cayman, we're talking about the pension relief, and we'll come to that, I'm sure. But if that's a policy action, well, that seems intuitively, yeah, that will help people start spending. But of course, it won't, because no one's able to get out of their home to spend money. And therefore, those industries that rely on people spending money aren't able to actually get any income in their doors because people can't get to them. So the policy response of let's give people cash doesn't actually necessarily solve the problem for many, many, many businesses that are actually out there.
But that seems to be, as you said, the intuitive approach, and historically that may be what we would do depending on which sort of economic model we will follow. Are you now saying that the tried and true isn't really the best option, that there is something else that's better? What would you propose then?
No, well, that's the thing. A good economist should only really ever say that the solution to something is something that they have evidence that it works. Mm-hmm. You should use some statistical analysis to review what's gone on in history and say, given these sorts of examples, this is the approach that we should be followed, whether it be a monetary stimulus, and of course, the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, the European Central Bank, nearly every central bank around the world is doing monetary stimulus. But if the central banks around the world printed a gazillion dollars tomorrow, what meaningful impact would that have on economies? Fundamentally nothing, because no one's able to spend any of that money, because no one's leaving their home to be able to spend it. Yes, we could all, I suppose, we could order a little bit more food from the supermarket and we could get a little bit more food delivered, but fundamentally there's a limit to what could go on there. And so the reality is that the vast majority of spending that goes on in the world is typically of a somewhat discretionary nature, and almost exclusively all discretionary spending has disappeared, not necessarily because people don't have the funds to spend, but because policy actions have been taken from a social distancing perspective that actually are preventing people from spending that money. So it doesn't actually matter if you printed money to your heart's content, or you borrowed money from the future and gave it to people from helicopters, you threw it out of helicopters and people were able to collect it on the streets, or you gave them some money back from their pension, or you give them some tax relief. It makes no difference if people don't have the means and the ability and the capacity to get out there and spend it. And that's the real challenge we're facing, because policymakers have at their disposal an armory of certain things that they think could work, but there's no evidence or testing done to say if they will work. And so one of the things that we've seen, for instance, you take Japan as a good example. Japan has been, for many, many years, been printing money furiously, and it's been trying to encourage people to spend. But the Japanese population is aging, and they don't need the same sort of spending patterns that they used to have. And so they haven't actually responded to all this extra money, this free money, this zero interest cost of money. They haven't responded to that by actually spending anything, and banks haven't responded to that by lending, by encouraging new businesses to set up. So take today's analogy. If the banks were given free money to do what they wished, would they lend to somebody to buy a new house in today's world? Well, perhaps, but how would someone buy a new house because they can't go and look at one? So that's the fundamental transmission mechanism in the economy that is absolutely today broken. And until that's fixed, all the other stuff that's been going on is really fluff around the big problem.
So I guess the question is, how do we fix that? How do we get people, that you're saying, whether it's discretionary income or not, whether it's free money, if you can't spend it because there's nowhere to go to spend it, no restaurants, no bars, no cafes, no sports events, no socializing, then the money isn't in and of itself, or the lack of money isn't the issue.
Well, exactly. And first and foremost, I'm no expert when it comes to public health. I'm not a medical scientist in the sense of what needs to happen in order to stop people getting infected from this. But as long as, and so there's 2 points here. As long as people, even if you could persuade people that it was actually okay to go out, and I'm not suggesting you should, but if you could persuade people that it was actually okay to go out, psychologically, would everyone be ready to do so? In other words, even if you unleash the opportunities for people to go out and head to the bars, restaurants, get on airplanes, would they actually do that? Because there is a psychological scar that many of us have with respect to this. I go for a run in the evening, and someone who's on the other side of the road sort of walks further to the other side of the road, and so we're now sort of 20 feet apart instead of 15 feet apart. Mm-hmm. Psychologically, people are scared of other human beings at the moment, and that's not a good situation to encourage people to get into restaurants, bars, airplanes, or stuff like that. So there is a psychological scar that could drag on for much longer than policymakers force us to be a part. But then, of course, you've got the policy action, which is at what point do politicians realize it becomes untenable to both psychologically keep people at home, which is a mental health issue, and also stop people from earning any money, and therefore preventing people from becoming destitute, because there are many, many, many people here in Cayman. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people in other countries, millions of people in other countries who are getting very close to their last dollar or cent. And then we start having conversations about if these people can't work, we're starting to talk about starvation. We're starting to talk about people not being able to afford the very basics of necessities simply because they can't go and earn a $5, $6, $7 an hour wage. And that's a real fundamental problem.
So when we're looking at this, and as I listen to you, I've heard other people share things, perhaps not as insightful and or as eloquent as you're putting it. You know, the succinctness of it is one thing, but then the scientific sort of analogy is the other. But people have commented on similar comments from others, and almost to the point where they've been castigated for sharing this perspective. They say, hey, you know, if you continue doing this, there is the financial implications, but there are also, more importantly, the mental health aspects, starvation and the like. So when we come back, could we also maybe continue that, if you're comfortable with it, and try to get people to dispel the myth that just because you ask a question that is maybe on the periphery, and you're thinking and you're willing to inquire, it doesn't mean that you're a conspiracy theorist. And then continue on from the perspective of, well, you know, money may be an answer, but it may not be the be-all and end-all, or maybe it is. Could we take it down that path as you have time?
Yes, of course.
All right. Excellent company of Mr. Simon Cordry from our Money Sense program. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion.
Start getting your debt under control with a debt consolidation loan from Fidelity Bank. At Fidelity, your loan decision is quick with no runaround. Plus, with competitive interest rates and fees, we will help you reduce your monthly payments and get you back to living again. Don't let the burden of overwhelming debt tie you down this year. Call Fidelity today and let's make it happen with a Fidelity Bank debt consolidation loan. Fidelity, we're good for you.
We understand that things are different, and we are committed to providing you with the service that you need with convenience through our MyCUC online portal. Working remotely and students being home from school doesn't have to mean higher electricity bills. Monitor and manage your energy consumption by using our Customer Connect energy management tool. This allows you to track and make adjustments to your energy usage to avoid consuming high amounts of electricity and keep your electricity bill lower. Protect your health and the health of others by avoiding crowds and using PowerPay to manage payments for accounts from wherever you are most comfortable. If you're not signed up for MyCUC as yet, it's quick and easy. Just contact our customer service team at service@cuc.ky or 949-5200 today. Remember, we're all in this together, and you've got the power to make a difference.
Digicel Shake to Win is back. Every Saturday, Digicel is giving you a chance to win LTE handsets, cash prizes, data, D-Music subscription, gas vouchers, grocery vouchers, and that's not all. Every week, you get a chance to win a $5,000 regional prize. Don't miss out. Simply download the new My Digicel app, activate a plan if you're not already on one, and shake to win every Saturday. It's that simple. My Digicel. More made simple. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, K-Man. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Stay home. Leave Granny alone. Darling child, I mean we can't be visiting our old people because they're more compromised. We gotta keep them safe. Anna got it now? If Anna want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Caymankind.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. We're working remotely, trying the thing, as they say. As my friend Nobi says, trying the thing. Well, joining us equally is Mr. Simon Cordray, one of the Chartered Financial Analysts, Director of Helix Advisory Services, and the excellent host of our Money Sense program. Simon, thanks for sharing with us, man.
No, pleasure. Thank you for the kind words where you made a call out to my company and gave me all sorts of good titles. Appreciate it.
No, my listen, I hope that in Cayman in particular, we start to appreciate that right within our shores, sometimes the door next door in our neighborhood, we have such a vast array of talent, people who are not only experienced and have the expertise, but are gracious and willing to share that with us if we only reach out. So maybe the answers to some of these problems locally, regionally, and globally could be from within our shores. I may even posit that a little further with respect to looking at some of the things from the geopolitical landscape in terms of the financial vehicles that have been utilized over the years relative to mergers and acquisitions, either by private entities or even through governments working in partnership with other governments. But before we get there, I was asking, just before we went to the break, this notion that, and I say this carefully because I don't want to offend any sensibilities, nor do I want to betray any confidences, but in the last almost a week or so in particular, a number of quasi-retired or certainly individuals who are getting to a stage now because of the situation we're in, to saying, you know what, I don't necessarily need to be at my office 80 hours a week anymore. Let's look at some other things. And they have some time on their hands. They've been rereading texts that they may have read in university, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe longer. Or they're looking at other things and they're saying, well, what if? And I was inspired, just to set the tone, by what you said earlier, that we may look at a Keynesian approach to this as the economic model to follow, but we may have to consider other things, because no matter where we drop the money from a helicopter, if the people can't spend it, then it doesn't matter how much you have. So thinking outside of the norm. Is it a challenge that people are maybe unwilling to publicly share thoughts as a possible solution because they may be perceived, or fairly they may be perceived as being, well, wow, you're a conspiracy theorist, in whatever that may be?
Yeah, well, Sterling, that is probably the most important conversation that should be had more often than it's being had today, because we should never be afraid. No one should ever be afraid of listening to a different opinion. I think what's going on right now is something that psychologists would be incredibly familiar with, which is the trap of confirmation bias. People see in the data that they're seeing, that they're looking at, support for the policies that they've enacted, and therefore believe those policies are right, without necessarily the evidence always showing that. And that's a real problem. And I say that not because it's unique to Cayman, not because it's unique to other countries. I see that simply because it's going on in the world around us. And we're spending way insufficient time looking at case studies such as Iceland, looking at case studies such as Germany, Sweden, other countries that have done things differently and have been allowing companies to operate in a much reduced manner, but allowing them to operate in such a way. Now, if the data changes and those countries start to see big problems, then of course we should, as right-minded, science-thinking people, we should adjust our thinking to that. But equally, we must be open-minded enough to realize that it's not always the case that policies that are followed today are the right policies. Now, I'm not making a judgment as to whether the policies are right today or not at this juncture. You may ask me for that in a moment. But I think what we must really be clear of is we don't live in an absolute monarchy. We don't
Right.
live in a situation where different opinions are not permitted, and people must be able and must be willing and must not be afraid of being able to give their opinion, because the very essence of this crisis, which is it's unknown, it was unpredictable, and it doesn't have evidence before it of which we can rely on, means that people don't always get it right, however professional, however expert they are in their field. And let me give you an example of that, which I think is crucial in this thing. So I think the head of the infectious disease unit, Dr. Fauci, was on TV a week or so ago, and he very bluntly said the modelists got it wrong. The models are wrong. They're fundamentally wrong because the evidence today is different to what the models showed. Now, the modelists may say, oh, well, we've enacted policies that have changed it. But that's not true if you look at some of the science research. So why do we therefore make policies today based on models that have been proven to be wrong? I don't know. Maybe these still are the right policies, but what we have to recognize and what we have to be willing to recognize is that there may be different things that we should be doing in order to allow people to get back some semblance of reality in their lives, because otherwise we risk destroying things. Now, equally, if the data shows if a country starts to liberalize, so take Germany, for instance, they're starting to say, hey, we're going to allow in certain areas people to go out of their houses a little bit more and do stuff. If the evidence starts to show that actually that's a real problem, people start to get infected and things go wrong, then of course one should learn from that and respond accordingly. But we should always be willing to learn from the evidence and from test cases that are happening, because we are in one sense, this is a unique science experiment whereby each country is, in a sense, its own unique test case. No one country is doing things the same. And so we have perfect test cases of, hey, if we do this, what happens? If you do that, what happens? And if you do the other, what happens? We should be studying that much more, and we should be open-minded enough to realize when other countries get it right and when other countries get it wrong, and when we get it right and when we get it wrong. So debate, discussion, and input from other people is really, really important, and I can't encourage policymakers to do more of that.
And I'm glad that you share that, because hopefully as people hear it from, different quarters and from people who, like yourselves, who are objective and partial, there isn't any particular overt motive or ulterior motive in any sense. But look at Sweden, for instance. In the early days, Sweden was almost castigated, seen as the pariah, because it did things the way Sweden does things. And now it's seemingly working for them. Germany, a population, many times larger than Sweden. Well, 80 million or so versus 10 million, But Iceland, Finland, and the others. But how is it then that when we look at these things and we look at examples, say the UK or the US, and we've seen best practices or better practices in one and things are not working in the other, why are we not here, who are in Cayman, for instance, not more willing to try?
Absolutely. Hong Kong's another classic example, which is close to China, and yet people in Hong Kong are allowed to go to restaurants. They're not going to restaurants much. But they are allowed to, and they are forcing social distancing restaurants. Restaurants have to take half the number of tables out. But there is some degree of normalcy returning, and if you speak to someone in Hong Kong, they will adamantly, to their dying breath, they will say that one of the reasons for that is the the almost 100% wearing of face masks. And of course, when you listen to every scientist in the Western Hemisphere for the first 2 months of this crisis, they said face masks are completely irrelevant, don't bother about it. And then, of course, we change our minds. So I think there's been this groupthink, this confirmation bias that I talked about. Psychologists are some of the people we actually should be turning to in this crisis, not only for people's mental health, but actually to assess, which is, and I don't say that to diminish it, because that's really, really important. But I say that because during this crisis, the risk of bad policy decision making because of psychological pressures is manifest, and that is something that we should try to get at the forefront of and try and prevent that in our policymakers around the world.
I agree with you, and I certainly believe that on a personal level, having a chance to chat either to psychologists or psychologist students, sometimes a student is just that person who's so full of life and has so much other things going on that they're anxious and eager to share with you what they've just recently have been studying or reading in their latest lectures. But the psychology and the economics, they go hand in hand. The consumer behavior you shared earlier, that whether it's out for a run or whether it's going to a restaurant, the psychological impact, the scar that you referenced, that is becoming more and more evident. We are becoming habit forming now in terms of how we socialize.
Oh, exactly.
So money is going to be the answer.
And Sterling, if I might look, there are two bugbears I have, and this is me in a relatively calm mode. Otherwise, I could be much more inflammatory about it. But I have two bugbears about this. This whole ridiculous argument that people shouldn't be out exercising for long periods of time or other such things. So, for instance, the argument goes that you can't be sitting on the argument is, for instance, in Cayman, you shouldn't be sitting on the beach or walking on the beach because it's too dangerous. You might catch something from somebody, even if you're 6, 10, 20 feet apart from the person.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely fine to stand in a line for an hour and a half outside Kirk's waiting to get in 6 foot away from people. It's either too dangerous on the beach, in which case it's too dangerous by Kirk's, or it's not too dangerous. And then we have this ridiculous situation whereby we're saying, now, what we want to do is avoid people congregating. And the solution to that is to limit the number of hours that supermarkets are open. And what that does is it forces people into a confined space more often than they otherwise would. We should be encouraging supermarkets to open for longer on more days of the week, because that would, first of all, it would encourage people to have more people being employed. Then you would have the benefits of, actually, let's try and encourage them to do more deliveries. You can train people up to do this sort of stuff, and people could actually get some cash in their pockets. Yes, it may cost some of us a little bit more with our supermarket shopping because of extra hours, but I think if my supermarket bill was an extra $5 each week because of this, I would happily pay that. Then other people would be employed as a result of it, and that would be to the benefit of the economy. So sometimes we think great intentions equal bad policy making sometimes, and I must say those, to my mind, are two obvious ones.
I share with you, and I like what you're saying, so people don't misunderstand. Like what you're saying, it is an intent to criticize, or to offend the sensibilities of policymakers. But if the beach, for argument's sake, if we're in the water, swimming or snorkeling or paddleboarding or kayaking or whatever it is, the sunshine, the salt water in and of itself must be good for the mental health, but it's probably good for the physical health. The fresh air, the breeze, probably isn't going to allow the virus, if it's in the air, stay there as long as it would if you were inside a building, for argument's sake. And then Sterling, take that to its logical extension. You say, okay, well, we can't exercise on Sundays, so you can't leave your house on Sundays. And everyone says, well, some people are working Monday to Fridays, others aren't. Let's not forget that. That's a completely different, much more important point. But we'll come to that, I'm sure. People who are working Mondays to Fridays say, well, the only time I can then exercise, because I can't exercise after 6:30, means I have to exercise on Saturday. So half the country is out exercising on a Saturday because they can't exercise on a Sunday, which means that people are much more congregated in their exercising routines than they would be if you allowed people to go out on 2 days of the weekend. Well, it's a very strange situation where we accept that sort of approach, and then those who criticise it are castigated for doing so. That's completely naive in so many respects. I'll give you an example from medicine and from law that was shared with me. All right, the law one, I can't recall exactly where. The medical one was somewhere in the New England states, perhaps the mid-90s. And I was trying to reach the guy beforehand to kind of ask if he would join us just to relate. But the premise was that this particular young, when I say young, I mean newly minted physician, got approval from, I'll use the word the county, it's not the right term, but in the little area, it was a public sort of low-income area in the clinic. And he said, okay, what we'll do is we're going to take the team, and initially it was 3, and we'll go into this area and we're going to do health and wellness checks, because we saw, there's an incident of diabetes, hypertension, the things that, should have been caught had these people access health care and coming into the hospital as the rest of the state was doing. And he tracked it over 5 years, and he found that the problem was, it wasn't that they did not only have no health insurance, because other people in the area didn't. It was that they couldn't get to the physician. So the physician, the medical team was coming to them, and that sort of sorted. Now, likewise, I was told that something similar with the legal system, making adjustments in terms of when court was being held and when the proceedings could take place, as opposed to 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. p.m. Take a break for 4 hours, come back and have 5 minutes of court and the like. That sort of approach. Why I'm saying that is that the fellow presented that to me, that maybe from the policing perspective, it's easier to control, his words, right, the movement of people, because it's more manageable as opposed to what you're saying, let people out more often. All right, I know we have a break, but let's take that, and then we'll come back and see where it takes us.
Fabulous. Okay.
Right.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Stay home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Bring a little bit of luck to your house with Lucky Slice from America. Burgers, steak, and the all-day American breakfast. From Europe, fish and chips, pizza and crepes. And from Asia, sushi.
Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, 7 days a week, delivery or pickup, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. In these difficult times, we can all use a little bit of luck. Keep calm and stay lucky.
Minimize contact. Make your credit card payment by phone. Pay only for food. No delivery fee. No service charge. Certain restrictions apply. Call Lucky Slice Pizza to place your delivery order now. 949-3456.
Order from Cayman Creperie, Mojo Sushi, and Lucky Slice Pizza. Call 949-3456.
Oh gosh.
Don't let the stress of taking care of loved ones get you down.
Home care, now made easier with Cayman Medical Supplies. 100% Caymanian owned. Cayman Medical Supplies now stocks a wide range of home care supplies. Hospital beds, all types of wheelchairs, including beach access wheelchairs, lifts, commodes, shower chairs, walkers, Curad brand orthopedic supplies. Free blood glucose monitors with the purchase of 1 pack of test strips, blue underpads, and a whole lot more.
Need home care convenience? Drop by Cayman Medical Supplies at 93 Smith Road, Windward Center, or call 949-6211. Free delivery.
Now open 9 a.m. till noon. Still delivering island-wide for your convenience. Stay home. Stay safe, Cayman.
Home, which should be a haven, can even be less of a safe space during curfew if someone is experiencing child abuse. If you or anyone you know is being abused, help is nearby. For emergencies, call 911. They will redirect your call to the relevant agencies. For general guidelines and inquiries, call the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, MASH, at 1-800-534-2273 or 945-0545. Alternatively, email mash@gov.ky.
Hello, K-Man. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Stay at home. Stay home. No gadaboutin'. Stay your backside home. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Caymankind.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. As an excellent sort of guide to our discussion today, Mr. Simon Cordray from our Money Sense program is sharing with us. Simon, I appreciate everything you have to share and, recognizing the time, not only the news break, a few minutes, and then the other things, but at some point you referenced the pensions. Maybe we can revisit that to some extent as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, yes. Well, everyone's probably familiar with, from some of the headlines that have come out, that it looks like the government's going to be passing policy to allow people to do two things. One is to withdraw up to $10,000 and then to withdraw after that up to 25% of their pension pool. Sorry, let me start that again. People in the private sector, I should be very clear about that. This will only apply to people in the private sector. Will be able to withdraw $10,000 from their pension pool if they have it, and then after that up to 25% of the balance, to the extent that there is a balance after. And then the third point is that there will be the permission for there to be a 6-month pension holiday. So what does that mean? It means for 6 months companies and individuals don't have to pay into pensions. Now, there's a few things to say about that, and the first thing is to realize that we don't have in Cayman a social security safety net. We don't have the ability to print our own currency. So the typical levers that policymakers may enact, such as monetary policy or fiscal policy that we talked about at the top of this show, one can't actually do that in Cayman to any great extent. And so as much as I might philosophically dislike this policy, and I do dislike it philosophically, I think from a practical perspective, I think it's probably necessary. But there are extra things that I think there's some nuances here which I think have been missed and people need to be very clear on. So the first is, there are obviously in Cayman many companies that are struggling beyond anyone's imagination, which simply have no revenue coming in the door and have real problems as to A, how do they keep the company alive, how do they pay themselves any money to just be able to go out and buy food, and then also how do they pay their employees, and those are real problems. This pension holiday for companies won't do anything about that, but it may help those people access funds from their pensions to get through some of the problems of surviving. In other words, having enough cash to be able to go to the supermarket and buy some bread, buy some milk, buy some other stuff like that. And I think that's probably what the good intention about this policy is designed to do, and I think that's probably right. I think that's a necessary evil because there are long-term issues, but it's a necessary evil to fix a short-term problem in Cayman, and so supportive. Then on the other hand, there are companies in Cayman, and I say this not to be lighthearted, but there are many companies in Cayman that are doing very well. So the financial industry, in many instances, is actually doing better than it's done in previous years. The level of activity is up from what it was in previous years. And yet what I've already heard from 2 companies is that they're going to encourage their staff, and this is in the financial industry, they're going to encourage their staff to avail themselves of the pension holiday. And that, to me, is a completely bad policy. Because what that means is that well-performing companies are basically going to give their staff a pay cut. I want that to sink in. If you are one of those employees in one of those companies and your employer is doing quite well, business is good, and they say to you, we want you to take advantage of this 6-month holiday, they are giving you a pay cut. You may not realize that, but why not? Because what they're doing is they're not going to contribute 5% into your pension, and that's 5% that's to you. Now, if they say, I suggest you avail yourself of this pension holiday, and they give you that money, that extra money they would have paid in cash, then absolutely go for it, sure. But they are otherwise giving you a pay cut, and this is a really slippery slope that some companies I already know of are using as an underhand excuse to pay their staff less, even though they're performing very well. And so that's something that I think is an unintended consequence, which perhaps hasn't been thought through as well as it might have been.
I'm glad you raised that, because I think what it's going to show is that for that company or companies who do that, then they're reducing their monthly sort of payroll. And where is that going to take us? Not just 6 months down the road, but maybe the precedent for going forward. The other question, for those people who do not, for whatever reason, they may don't feel it's timely to do it. They may believe that they're in this for the long haul, so it's better to wait down the road as opposed to taking the money now. If they don't take it, are they at risk of losing even further because less money presumably is in that pension pool to be invested?
Yeah. Well, so that's why I phrased it as a necessary evil, because what we're doing is we're solving a short-term problem, and absolutely this short-term problem needs a solution. As I keep on going back to, there are people who are almost at destitute's door who need help, and absolutely there needs to be a mechanism to get them help. It's a little bit frustrating. It seems like it's going to take 50 days to get cash to people in this sense, but that's not for me to know more about, other than that's what it seems to be. But so the solution of giving people access to funds is a necessary evil, and I think it's the right policy. But what does this mean for the future? Because there will be many Caymanians who will avail themselves of this. It kind of doesn't matter if someone's on a work permit and leaves this country. It doesn't really matter to Cayman that they take advantage, that they take money out of the pension, spend it, and then leave the island. That kind of doesn't really affect Cayman long term. But if the more Caymanians who are going to retire here in Cayman who do this, what we're going to have is we're going to have a problem or a situation in 20, 30 years where people, first of all, the pension law needs to change in the future to allow people to put, or to force people to perhaps put more in, force maybe the wrong word, but there needs to be a conversation about changing the contribution rates into the pension scheme, because people are not going to retire on the money that they need. Now, this is going to make it substantially worse, because you're exiting money at a time when markets have come down, and so you're taking quite a large percentage of your wealth in 10,000 or 25% of something that's gone down quite a lot. And so that's a problem, and that means that in the future we are going to be faced with a situation where many people who are retiring here, Caymanians, are not going to have enough money to be able to afford to retire. How do we solve that? Well, I can't think of many solutions other than taxation, and probably no one in this country wants to talk about taxation. So we need to have a longer-term strategy as to how we fix this. And so let me give you an example. Imagine today someone who's going through, or who may be going through the status application process in 3 or 4 years' time, and they take the money out today. Should we be actually saying, yeah, you can take your money out today, but you must put it back in before status is approved or permanent residency is approved? That might well be one good solution. I don't know if it's been talked about, but what we are going to find is there going to be an increasing number of people in the future who are going to be a burden on Cayman's economy, which will be a burden Cayman, without something like taxation, will not be able to afford. And so, yes, we need to solve today's problem, absolutely. And I think it's commendable that we are, but we risk creating big problems in the future as well.
Okay, after the break, let's ask about taxation, but also ask about potential of what that market could look like. We're talking, reduced pension funds 10%, 30% if we were to take the money now or the next 50 days. All right, those are the questions. We'll come back another 15 minutes or so with Mr. Cowdrey. Stay tuned.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have here on Island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
For today's biggest news. Access.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
No regular press briefing today, but instead at 2 p.m. or when the Legislative Assembly breaks, a recorded session on government's Facebook and Twitter channels will showcase 3 clinicians from the city and Doctors Hospital who will discuss and answer media questions on COVID-19, how it presents, and what to do in the event of a flare-up. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. 2 men accused of committing crimes against humanity for the Syrian state have gone on trial in Germany. It is thought to be the first case worldwide examining the use of torture under President Bashar al-Assad's rule. The 2 allegedly worked as government intelligence officers. Both fled Syria in the midst of its ongoing civil war and applied for asylum in Germany, where they were arrested in 2019. And a Chinese journalist who was chased and then detained in Wuhan, the center of the country's virus outbreak, has reappeared after almost 2 months. Li Zewa broadcasted the chase and his detention by police on February 26th and had not been seen publicly since. However, on Wednesday, he published a video saying he spent 2 weeks in quarantine in Wuhan, followed by more quarantine in his hometown. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Start getting your debt under control with a debt consolidation loan from Fidelity Bank. At Fidelity, your loan decision is quick with no runaround. Plus, with competitive interest rates and fees, we will help you reduce your monthly payments and get you back to living again. Don't let the burden of overwhelming debt tie you down this year. Call Fidelity today and let's make it happen with a Fidelity Bank debt consolidation loan. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Digicel is all about giving customers more convenience, more peace of mind, and more flexibility. Do more with the new My Digicel app. Buy plans, pay your bill, track your credit, track your data, and monitor your accounts. It's easy to use and has everything you need in one place. It's time to simplify your life, so go ahead and see for yourself. Download the new My Digicel app today. More made simple.
The RCIPS, National Drug Council, and Radio Cayman are reminding you to stay home, refrain from social gatherings, and having parties during soft and hard curfew. Do your part, limit alcohol consumption, or stay sober. Do not undermine your immune system and health by misusing alcohol or any other substance. Remember, we are all in this together. Stay safe, stay home, stay alive, Cayman.
Do you have questions about your water service? We've got the answer. Keep up to date with what's happening at the Water Authority by checking our website, waterauthority.ky. You can also stay up to date by following our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter page.
Hello, Cayman. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Social distancing. Well, that means you're to keep a distance of 3 to 6 feet away from the person next to you. Or in layman's term, if you can see the color of the eye next to you, you're too close. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Caymankind.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And again, a special thanks to Mr. Simon Cordry, Money Sense host. Now, before we leave, Sam, I know you only got a few more minutes with us this afternoon because, somewhat we at work. You have to, continue and get back to work. I want to remind our listeners that the Money Sense coming up is next Thursday, right?
Next Thursday, 7:30 in the morning. Yes, bright and early.
It's going to be live.
Yes, it should be. Yes,
We're pushing to get it, every day, Monday through Sunday.
Yeah, well, the only problem there is me getting up in time every morning, and that's the big challenge. So this lunchtime stuff, I don't know how you do it every day and how you manage to get through the lunch hour without eating, but you do a fabulous job. But every day for Money Sense would be too much work for me.
No, but you guys do a great job, and to our listeners, that's next Thursday, 7:30. So please tune in for our Money Sense program. I say this publicly, I say it sincerely. You guys do a fantastic job. The information you convey is not only timely and informative, but it helps us to understand those of us who may have a little inkling into the financial sort of thinking and ruminations, but even those of us who don't really understand all this stuff. You guys explain it in a way and gives us, an insight. So thank you very much. We have a couple of calls. Yeah, and we'll try to get to them in a second. For our listeners, we are doing this remotely, just to test and try it and leverage our technology. But I wanted to ask a question, or to maybe go back to a point you were making earlier. The pension funds, if we access them, potentially they could be less. Now, is that the case? And if so, why? Talk to us.
Yeah, well, I think if I might shamelessly plug Money Sense for next Thursday, it's something that we're going to spend a little bit, quite a lot of time going into some detail about whether people should be taking advantage of this. If they do, what they should potentially be doing with the funds and what the implications are. So I'm going to suggest that people really should tune into that, because we're going to try and spend 25 minutes talking about that in some detail with a round table of professionals. But yes, in essence, if people take money out of their pension now, pensions will generally be down probably 20%, something like that this year so far, because of the financial crisis. So you're taking money out at a time which is probably the worst time to take something out. In other words, when markets are down is the time you shouldn't be taking money out because of the implications. The implications being that you're crystallizing something at its worst possible time. You want to sell when markets are high and buy when they're low. And put that into context. If we were able to close our eyes and close our eyes for 15 years, would the virus still be around in 15 years as a material human public health concern? I've not read anything to suggest it will be. And so on that basis, what we need to try and do is encourage people, to the extent that they can, and I realize not everyone can, but encourage people to leave money in a pension because it's in their long-term interest. Taking money out now, if you need to, do it. If you don't need to, it's a terrible time to do it. And as I say, there will be much more discussed about that next Thursday with a team of people who will have spent some more time doing the research as to the exactitudes of the policy and implications, and hopefully have crunched some numbers as well.
Okay. And I may ask of you from the perspective of, after September 11th, after the 2008 financial crisis, and now we have seen little dips in our pension funds, but have they recovered? And, if we have the luxury of the side. But if we get time, maybe we can delve into that. Susan is reminding us that we do have a caller. Let's see how we can, invite this caller to share with us. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Dwayne Sterling Ebanks, and good afternoon to you guests.
Yes, sir. Well, Dr.
Steve McPhee here. Are you hearing me?
I can. Simon, are you able to hear Mr.
Perfectly.
Oh. Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir. Are you hearing us?
Okay. Everything that your guest has said, all the cautiousness that he's putting forward about the pension front is correct. Mm-hmm. There's one more thing that I would like to add. Are you still hearing me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that is that there is no mechanism in this policy that has been so quickly and precipitously thought up to prevent people from taking the money, their pension money, and sending it off and transferring it out to another jurisdiction. That is a great possibility. I'm not talking about those workers who would want to get their pensions now instead of waiting for it for 2 years after they have left the Cayman Islands. I'm talking about people who are working here, who otherwise are working here, and some people have permanent residents, some people are long-term residents, and so forth. And there's no mechanism from stopping them from withdrawing the pension money and then transferring it out to the Cayman Islands to a different jurisdiction. And then you have the problem where the Cayman Islands government is going to still have to take care of them because we don't know how long this crisis is going to continue.
Yep, and if I might jump in there, Sterling, the caller is absolutely right. As far as I know, and look, I don't suppose I haven't read the nuance of the law, and I'm sure there might be some quirks in it when it's published and all the rest of it. And I'd encourage people to obviously people should read the law in that respect. But in principle, you seem to me to be absolutely right, and it's why I said when we talked about this that what we are also, if someone takes it and transfers it off the island, yeah, that's a problem, I suppose. But the bigger problem is if that person is then going to live here in Cayman for the rest of their life and retire here, and potentially never or spend that money carelessly and go and buy a nice boat or whatever it might be, because then people are going to go through a mechanism whereby they won't have enough funds. And so that's why I suggested, what about thinking about if somebody's going through that residency, PR, status process and wants to take this money, that they should be required to put it back in so that their pension pot is not as inadequate as it otherwise might be, and therefore the Cayman government is not going to be expected to bail them out in the future. That's something that I think should be more actively considered.
Yes, and another thing that I experienced today. Some of the a few of the supermarkets are really price gouging. The prices have gone up almost double on some items from last week or the week before last, and that is something that the government ought to look in. And I don't understand why the government has shut down the farmers market, because some of the stuff that you buy in the supermarkets, for instance, you could get a bag of tangerines or oranges for under $5. Now they're $8 for that, and that's only been since 2 weeks ago. And I don't know why. Because in the farmers market, you can still keep your distance, your physical distance, the same as you keep your physical distance in the supermarket.
Yeah, I think you raised a fabulous point, which is why, and it comes back to one of the things I said right at the top of the show, which is about the psychology of being reinforced on an opinion, the confirmation bias issue. Why are fishermen not allowed out to go fishing and sell their product? Why can a Caymanian fisherman not go out, catch a grouper and sell it? You can still be, as you say, that 6 foot. If the 6 foot is the gospel, you can be 6 foot apart. I don't know if that's necessarily right, and there's lots of evidence to dispute that. But your point is, I think, incredibly well made on that side. On the supermarket side, I want to suggest a little caution there on your perspective. And the reason for that is we're a price taker here in Cayman of prices, in many instances, in that what prices we end up paying in the supermarket are a reflection of what it costs us to get something from overseas. And majority, I don't know, 90-something% of the stuff in the supermarkets is from overseas. And so, as we all know, there's been a run on the supermarkets in terms of people hoarding certain things. And so perhaps it costs them more to get the same product as before. And if you start to impose price controls on supermarkets, what that means is that people in Cayman will go hungry because they won't be the product on the shelf. So if you're right, then that's a problem. But I want you to just think about the second order factor, which is it's not necessarily our supermarkets that are causing prices to rise. It might simply be that their suppliers are charging them more overseas. So just bear that in mind, if you would.
Yes, I'll bear that in mind. But are you with me that there's no reasons why the farmers market can't stay open also?
Oh, totally. Which farmers market, fishing, I could go through a range of industries. I mean, look, gardeners. I don't have a garden, so it's not a major issue. But why is a gardener not able to garden at the moment? I mean, I can probably keep, if I had a garden, I'm fairly sure I could keep 20 feet away from the gardener if I needed to.
Exactly.
There are so many people who are living paycheck to paycheck, who are not getting a paycheck, who need to be put back into work for the good of themselves and for the good of the economy. And I don't think we thought through some of the implications as well as we might have done, and that's why I go back to this confirmation bias argument.
And I hope that you agree with me that there has to be a post-CIVD plan. What plan? There should be a plan. And what the government should do, the government should go back to the 1990s and start forming public-private sector advisory committee along with the government to help them to formalize this plan to get the country back up and running again.
Yes. Yes, totally. And I think that if you look globally, and I want to say this on a global basis because I don't want to always just pick on our government. It's an easy scapegoat, right? But I want to say this on a global basis. I think policymakers globally have been negligent in their planning for recovery.
Yes.
I think there's been, quite rightly, there's been a lot of focus on saving human lives. Absolutely right. There's no question that's important. Absolutely no question. But we should be able to do two things at the same time. We should be able to plan to save human lives and plan for a recovery simultaneously. And I don't see enough evidence of input being sought from the public to try and persuade people that this is the right way to recover, and we live in a dictatorship right now in most countries. But there needs to be the conversation of bringing people into the process of accepting the terms under which they're living and accepting the terms under which they're going to be future living. And that I don't think is being done very well in any country around the world. And I think that's a real problem.
Thank you very much, sir, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you for sharing. And Simon, I know you have, to get back, but always enjoy listening to you, whether on the Monday Sense, especially we have a chance to have you join us now. Maybe next Thursday, if you still have the energy, and you do the Monday Sense program, maybe you can come back with us. If not, maybe Friday. But certainly, look at your schedule at the very least for the week following that to talk. If you're so encouraged, maybe to expound further, not just on the financial, but the social implications of, the dictatorship, for want of a better word, that we are globally in the free democratic countries we're living under right now. Right?
Yeah, and I just want to be clear, Sterling. When I say things like dictatorship, I don't mean that negatively. I don't mean that pejoratively. No. It's just the reaction. It's just the reality of the world we live in, and that's. So I'm not suggesting that the governor and the government have declared martial law, but it's just the reality under which we live in. So I don't want people to take offence to that. I'm just trying to use it as an analogy of what the circumstances are in which people are living.
No. Thank you. And I did it in a way because people. This is the reality. I mean, it is. As an example, I've joked with people, forever. If you are employed by somebody, you're on a prisoner work release program. You're required by your contract to come to work by a certain time, put in a certain time. It's a work release program, right? Yeah. You can analyze it, but that's the psychological implications. You know that come tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. if that's your start time, or 3 p.m. if that's your shift, that you're expected to be at work doing the job in that start time. It's a work release program, right?
I didn't realize you thought of Radio Cayman as in that sense, but I see where you're going with that, Sterling.
It's not just Radio Cayman. If I was working,
I'm kidding with you.
No. I know what you're saying, man. And I say this because the people who are willing to engage in discussion, words are important. I'm going to ask you one last question, but I'm going to beg you for another second of your time because we have another caller join us. Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for calling. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you? Are you able to hear us okay? We are trying this remotely, to leverage your technology.
Hello?
Hi, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I can barely hear you. Simon, are you hearing the caller?
I can hear fine, actually.
Okay. I'm not hearing the caller that well. All right. But you can hear us. Go right ahead now and listen intently. Yes, sir?
So, yes, I have been listening to Simon. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right. And follow through with your suggestions. But before I input...
Okay, sorry, I'm going to interject. I'm not sure if the caller is speaking. I hear a very low, faint voice, but I'm not hearing the caller at all.
So, overall, I think the government is doing a fantastic job with the hurdles and with what is going on right now with the limited resources that the government has working with. I think.
Sorry, Ms. Susan. There's a caller talking. Let me know. I cannot hear the caller. Simon, are you able to hear? Yeah. Hello, Simon.
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah, but I can't hear him, Susan.
I'm hearing you loud and clear, Dwayne, and I'm hearing Simon loud and clear as well.
Now I'm hearing you, yes. Thank you, sir. My apologies, but I couldn't hear you, so thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. I understand. So I was saying that I think the government is doing an excellent job with the limited resources that the government has and with what everything that is going on presently. And there's a thing that known as Einstein 2020, and that is, if I had known after the fact. Sometimes when things are happening in real time, it created a lot of different strains to put infrastructure in place to make the right decision. And I say that to say that if we look back at one of the decisions that the government has made in terms of the courier buying those 200 test kits, this company, the government didn't have absolutely no knowledge of this company. But what was at stake at that time, the government was put in a spot to make a decision, to make an intelligent decision, to take an intelligent risk, and also to use gut feelings along with limited time to do their checks and balances. With this pandemic, likewise, based on what is happening in real time, the government do not have much flexibility to look back into history and to look and plot graphs and to say, hey, based on trends, then these are decisions that can likely be made. Also, based on history, there has been nothing like this in the past decades, nothing like this. So we maybe have not even historical records to check, to verify, and to use it as a benchmark to make decisions now. So I say this to say that the government will not get everything right, but I think the government is doing a fantastic job in terms of what is happening. I think the government has a plan, although maybe it doesn't seem as if there's a plan, but I think there is a plan. And this is just my theory. With this pension and the 45 days, money pumped into the economy maybe will not necessarily help, but it will help, especially now, based on what is happening. And I say this to say that, one, from a psychological point of view, it is best to know that you have the resources and cannot utilize it, rather than a month or two down the line, you don't know where it is coming from. So from a psychological point of view, with the restriction at home and also with the burden to think and to plan how are you going to make two ends meet, it is best to have the resources and do not use it rather than you do not have the resources. So based on what is happening in terms of the pension, I think it is a better fix to release rather than to withhold.
Okay. Yeah, well, look, as Sterling knows, I have only a couple of minutes left before I have to depart, I'm afraid. But I think what you're saying there is consistent with my view as well, which is I don't disagree that the pension thing is a necessary solution. So yes, I agree with you totally there. I also agree with you that I think the government has taken actions which are or have been ahead of those actions that have been taken by other governments around the world, and that's to their credit. That shouldn't prohibit us, though, from critiquing things that we think they do wrong, and that shouldn't mean that people who do critique them are castigated, as I've seen some people having been. So what I'm saying is that it's quite conceivable that one can agree and criticize and sincerely criticize concurrently, and that be an acceptable approach. And I hope most like-minded people would think that would be a fair perspective. And so my criticisms were made in that context. My commendations to the government, I think, are identical to yours, which is they've been proactive in the prevention of transmission and the safety of human health, and they've taken sensible action. But that doesn't mean that we can't learn from other people in other countries who are doing differently and perhaps refine things in sensible, clever, smart ways. That would be what I'd ask us to think about.
All right. Now, caller, if you have time, we can, after the break, I wouldn't mind posing a question to you if you have time and want to engage. Simon, before you go, if it's appropriate and you wish to answer, if not, your comment in relation to fishing. We heard the Honorable Premier, or actually His Excellency the Governor, it was an answer to a question from the media about the British military personnel that are coming and the assistance that they could render to the large commercial fishing operations. I think it was Hubbard's Freeze Did you hear that? Did you have any comments in relation to that?
No, I'm afraid I didn't. I didn't catch that. There's so much news that's going on around at the moment that I haven't caught everything. So that's something I can't really make a good educated comment on, I'm afraid.
Not a problem. I just go back to what you were sharing, and not only the benefits of it, the economic included, of having people be able to fish, but maybe we'll see how things evolve. Any final thoughts you want to leave today, and maybe when you rejoin us again, we'll continue, but any closing thoughts?
No, I think the closing thoughts, I think, were my response to the last caller, which is it's perfectly, we should encourage discussion, we should encourage debate, and we should try and avoid wherever possible this confirmation bias, which I think has set in amongst policymakers globally. And perhaps that includes Cayman, perhaps it doesn't, I don't know yet. But it's definitely a real risk, which is something that we need to address, because I think there's evidence that other countries are doing things differently and are having positive results, and we should be willing to listen, learn, and respond. And that's all I would ever ask of any policymaker.
Well, thank you, man. And I think we shouldn't ignore what you shared, where you phrased it, the psychological scars that could be as a result of this. But Simon, thank you, and we're looking forward to the Money Sense program next Thursday at 7:30.
Yes,
right?
sir. Exactly.
All right.
Yes.
And to our
thank you very much.
If you have a good afternoon, Simon. Be safe. Enjoy the rest of your week.
You too, Sterling. Keep well.
Engage afterwards. We'll do that as well, all right? We'll pause and take a short break. When we come back, more talk today.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Need to make an essential outing for personal care items or prescription refill? Make ValueMed Pharmacy your stop for essential products. Open daily under new curfew restricted hours. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or in Boddentown. Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Boddentown location opens at 8:30 a.m. and on Sundays and holidays 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. A maximum of 3 customers allowed in store, and customers are encouraged to maintain social distancing while shopping. For faster prescription service, order online through value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Breathing is everything. If you cannot breathe, making money means nothing. If you can't breathe, the beauty of the beach means nothing. If you can't breathe, fellowship is impossible. The coronavirus takes your breath away. With no vaccine, with no cure, our current solution is keeping your distance and staying at home. Remember, there is nothing without breathing. Breathing is living. Breathing is everything. Let's stay in the business of breathing. Business will come later. Do your part. Keep your distance. Stay at home. If you have to be out and about, remember, 6 feet apart is better than 6 feet below. This is Rotary Central saying, live to breathe to live, because breathing is everything.
Radio Cayman News.
Hard and soft curfews were both extended through the 1st of May.
The risk is far too high of a serious hazard across the Cayman Islands.
We are deeply conscious that this has grave financial impact.
We face a situation of declining revenues going forward, and it's going to be quite substantial.
Students' mental health and well-being will be significantly impacted.
Radio Cayman, your official source for Cayman's COVID-19 response. Hear it here first.
Hello, Cayman. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences, and I've read the press releases, and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Essential staff, police officers, immigration, customs, doctors, nurses, first responders, they are essential staff. So if you got to ask, then you ain't. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Caymankind.
For nearly 20 years, King Sports Center has been the heart of the Cayman fitness and wellness community. In order to ensure the welfare of all, we are temporarily closed until further notified by the Cayman Islands government that it is safe to reopen. During these trying times, we encourage everyone to maintain a healthy lifestyle, mind, body, and soul. We look forward to continuing providing you with world-class service in the very near future. Remain strong and continue to show the world the power of Cayman unity. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us. And earlier, that was Mr. Simon Cordry from our Money Sense program. So next Thursday, 7:30 a.m., join him, Dr. Amy, and the team as they bring you an update and a very insightful perspective on the pensions in particular. But let's go back to our phone. Say good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you for holding on. We do have another caller, but I just wanted to maybe conclude our discussion and ask you, you're sharing that the government, in your mind, has a plan. Two things. One, why do you think, they have a plan? What makes you say that you believe they have a plan?
Okay, so as we can see, the government is trying everything in its power to restrict the spreading of this virus.
Mm-hmm.
The plan that the government has, one is realistic, one is unrealistic. And let me look at the unrealistic one first. They claim that they want Cayman to be the first country who was infected with a zero case of coronavirus, which that's not so possible. That's kind of highly impossible. And we have to look at it from a realistic point of view. Even if we have tested everybody at this moment within the Cayman Islands, there are persons that can be positive who doesn't show any signs of the infectious disease, and then later on those persons become positive and those persons are negative based on the test. So it is highly impossible from my point of view. But from the point of view where it is possible to get things on stream, where I think the government, and this is where I think the government is going, the government definitely want to open the local economy, but the government do not want to take unnecessary risk. So, one, all frontline workers, all frontline staff, the government wanted to test that and them and isolate all the patients, all prospective infected personnel. Now, if you isolate all infected personnel from frontline staff, and you have a good grasp on community transmission, then you are well on your way in to control. Then, infrastructure that is put in place for the bulk testing. When I did a check on balances, if we have to test everybody based on the amount of persons that can be tested with the system that is in place, it will take like about a year before everybody will be tested. Now, I don't think the government will be waiting until 1 year before the economy is open up. So, within the next 2 months, and that I put it the next 2 months maximum, I think the local economy will be open. That next 2 months will intertwine with the release of the pension funds. That pension fund can utilize within the local industry. And that's the plan that I think the government has in mind. To one, try and control ensure that you eliminate as much as possible or isolate as much as possible the infected, and then have a good grasp of what is happening. You have a level of control. There will be ongoing testing, but for sure you'll have better control of what is happening. At this point, the government doesn't have control because for frontline staff, they do not know who has it from who doesn't and who is being associated with those frontline staff.
Mm-hmm. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking an extra couple of minutes to share with us, and always want to invite you and others to, give us a perspective. Continue to be safe and be vigilant and do our collective part to make our community that much better and more unified. Enjoy your afternoon, okay?
Okay, thanks. You too.
You're welcome. Let's go to the other line and join our caller. So there, good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm calling in regards to what the.
Sorry. Okay. Not you. There you are.
Hello?
Much better. Yes, ma'am.
You hear me better, right? Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. On the topic about the pension, he was mentioning, like if you don't need it or whatever, that you should not take it. I'm not saying that I don't disagree with that, but there's other people in different situations that you have to realize that, they're in need of their money, especially when you work with a company over almost 13 years and all of a sudden, with a slap in your face, they decide to terminate you on the unfair dismissal situation, and you're not even aware of what's going on. Like, it's like, giving you a bad cup of tea and say, hey, this is going to make you better. Drink this and walk. This is what has happened to me. And I've worked at that company almost 13 years. Yeah, so you have to be very careful. It's a very sensitive matter. At least I'm taking it that way. And personal also, because I'm one of those Archimanians, unfortunately, that had to file a complaint in this matter. And the government they're doing a very fantastic job, believe me. I listen to the radio most of the time when I'm doing that I don't have to necessarily be out. So it's a very a sensitive matter. In regards to people that are non-Timanians that's from the island, if they need their money and they want to go home, the government, like I said, can only assess so much people as mostly to do with Timanians, but in regards of helping the other non-Timanians, that is awesome also, because we, divided we stand,
Yeah, I think you're right. As you shared, it's a very personal, very
divided we fall, but it's just like that's the problem. Has always been throughout the years that I've noticed, not just with Caymanians, but every nationality of the world. Because I worked among, I've lost track. I think it's 86 or who knows, maybe it was about 90, approximately. Because on every dot of the map was someone from some part of the world.
Wow.
I worked at the Ritz-Carlton. I was trying to find the courage actually to get onto the station and announce this, because it mental, physical, emotional has disturbed me. But my Lord and Savior, believe me, He was the only one that's keeping me with faith and courage because I have to pray about it. Keeping my composure together, that I don't lose it. But I know there's a God. There is a God. And I said, before, we have the people that get on the talk, you have to be very careful, because I usually don't. This is the first time actually in years that I've been on the talk show that I had to get in, because I got offended by it, because I'm one of those persons that is in need of that pension. And it's already a process of waiting 45 to 90 days, where it's going to be in a queue of a waiting list anyway.
Have you, I don't wish to get, if I can ask you, I don't want for you to divulge any more personal information that you want to, but we are hearing through the media reports and from other people that the possibility that the pension amount is going to be significantly less because of, the performance of the stock markets and what have you. Have you, by chance, been given any indication what your pension would be like? That it's going to be less than it was a year ago, 6 months ago? Is it going to be close to the same amount? I'm not asking for the dollar value, just whether it's going to be. Do you know? Okay.
I'm not gonna be. I gather what the Englishman said also.
Mm-hmm.
However, it will be, I guess, within that range. But because it's like what the old folks always taught us, our parents and our grandparents, you have to save for the rainy days. You have to think about, and also like what the premier stated, we don't know how long we're going to be in this for. You have to just use it wisely. When you do get it, you stick it into your savings, whatever, you put it in the CD or whatever, or, let it grow, or, let it grow interest, because at the end of the day, when you really need what you need, it needs to be there, because you don't want to not be able to buy a lollipop. It's just like there's a speech,
Yeah, man, and I hear your position, and as you shared, it is personal. It is a very emotional, sensitive issue, and as the gentleman on with us earlier was saying, that people are in a position, they need it now. We just need to bear in mind that down the road, you'll also need it, and be in a position to at least respond to them, or at the very least acknowledge that situation now. So it is challenging, but you hold the faith, man. You keep it up. Anything else you want to share with us?
Yes, however, what made me feel a little better and more content, I did file a complaint, however. It's in the process. It's a confidential matter, of course, but like I said, through the government system. But I did file my complaint so that it can be investigated of the matter, because I did file my paperwork and stuff. Because like I said, the government can only help if there's so many people, Caymanians and non-Caymanians, and you can only do so much.
Right.
So it is what it is. So we have to all, like I said, try to live in unity. This is a part of the lockdown that not only by word and by far and what the situation is now today, but God is alive. He's awake. He has risen. This is the reason for this season.
Yeah, man. And you hold the faith, and if you think that calling the talk show just have someone to listen, or do you want to share your thoughts, please, feel free to call us here. I know Mr. Art, in the morning you can call, and he's a great man with great counsel and insight as well. So, as you shared, we're in this together. So let's work hand in hand to make it better for all of us, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
All the best to you.
Yes,
okay?
Sir. We're one family,
One family indeed. Let's remember that. All right.
Yep. Yes,
all
sir.
right. All right. Take care. Be safe.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You have a great day.
God bless. You too. All right. With that, we'll pause quickly and take a short break. When we come back, we'll have 2 quick announcements, including one as a reminder from the Jamaican Consulate. So please stay tuned.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up-to-date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today. It can help save a life. #StayHomeCayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
The public is advised that all public beaches will be closed throughout the Cayman Islands for a full 24-hour hard curfew from the 17th of April to 5 a.m. 1st of May 2020. This means persons are prohibited from entering on, walking, swimming, snorkeling, fishing, exercising, or any type of activity on any public beach during these times. Private owners with beach access are not permitted beyond the high water mark. Stay home to save lives, Cayman.
This is a public service announcement from your Radio Cayman, your community radio station. Here are some coronavirus prevention tips.
Home isolation means staying indoors and completely avoiding contact with other people. You need to do this if you have symptoms of COVID-19. If you are practicing home isolation, you should stay in a well-ventilated room with a window to outside that can be opened separate from other people in your home. Keep the door closed and use a separate bathroom from the rest of the household, if available. If you have to share these facilities, regular sterilization will be required. Consider drawing up a bathroom schedule for washing or bathing and have the isolated person using the facilities last.
For the latest updates and information, please visit hsa.ky/public-health/coronavirus or gov.ky/coronavirus.
We are Radio Cayman, and this is how we wake you up in the morning. Praise time. Praise time on Radio Cayman.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I'm gonna walk them golden stairs, 'cause I know my Jesus answers all my prayers.
Praise time.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
Praise time.
There's nothing to go back to. Give me Jesus in the morning. For the God of the mountain is still God in the valley.
Shout with joy to God, all the earth sing glory to His name. Praise time. Praise time.
Jesus in the morning, yeah.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you so much for joining us. Just a quick reminder, we have the headline news coming up at 2 p.m., but there won't be the regular scheduled press briefing today. As you know, the Legislative Assembly is in session, but instead we're going to have a clinical presentation on the COVID-19 by Health Today microbiologist Dr. Archida. She's going to be also joined by Dr. Delroy Jefferson, the Medical Director at the Cayman Islands Health Services Authority, and Dr. Stephen Gay, the anesthetist at Doctors Hospital. So that's happening at 2 p.m. as well. Now, quickly from the Honorary Vice Consul over the Jamaican Consulate, just an update to our listeners who may have seen in the some of the media outlets and on social media in particular that just want to make a correction in the Jamaican government has not as yet opened its borders for Jamaicans to return home as yet. There was an order passed yesterday in Jamaica that confirmed that between the 22nd of April and the 31st of May, that nobody will be permitted to enter Jamaica without the prior approval of its cabinet. And, you know, how it is so far, you know, we've heard that our government at our daily press briefings through His Excellency indicate that they are in negotiations with a number of countries. His Excellency did not yesterday specify which countries, as he shared. It is still an ongoing discourse, so perhaps at some point when they get there, that they'll be in a position to announce further which countries are there. We know that last weekend, Cayman Airways had 2 flights, I believe, slated to go to Nicaragua, and on almost the 11th hour, they were not able to take those Nicaraguan citizens who wanted to return, because the Nicaraguan government had closed its borders to its own citizens. So those citizens are still here. I think when we go back to the last caller right before the break, who was sharing that we're all in this together. So let's be as civil, as loving, as kind, as cooperative with each other to ensure as best as we can that we do what the older Caymanians have taught us: share and share alike. We may not have it as we would like it as yet, but if we have life, and then with that there's hope and there's an opportunity to help and share with each other to make sure people have food, have a semblance of shelter, certainly safety and security. With the greatest respect to the policing, if we don't, have need for them, that's less money that we have to waste spending on them. That's more money that the government could put into social programs like education and healthcare and the like. And if we are a civil, law-abiding, respectful and respectable people who understand, for now, this is, as it were, a time that we're looking out for our safety and security. So for now, if we are required to do certain things in order to, in the short term, look out for our safety, let's ensure that we do that. And if we have some food, it may not be as much as we would like, it may not be the same things that we were used to. But if we're not starving, then, we are still, at the very least, hopeful of things coming down the line. And as we make, adjustments to the way we live now, in short order, we can go back to a better sense of life. The beaches, the fishing, the socializing, irrespective of why we think we are where we are and what may happen after this. Well, it's about being together, being wise, being safe, making sure we're civil, we're secure, and the like. And I think, with the greatest respect, the gentleman that called earlier, Mr. Steve, I feel, his question is one that I believe has to be asked and answered. What is the plan for our country and, for the globe, for all of the countries after this thing? So a post, COVID-19 country, or what is our plan? What will our country look like? What is it that we're thinking that we should be doing? What is it that we're, hoping will transpire? Mr. Caudry, as he was sharing with us, asked the question, should it be a condition 3, 4, 5 years, whenever down the road, if a person today takes out money from the pension plan for whatever reason, and down the road, 3, 4, 5 years, as it may be, and that person is now applying for permanent residency status or what have you, should it be a requirement that the money taken out now has been returned to the pension plan, as he asked, to ensure that when that person becomes a citizen down the road and retires, that isn't a greater sort of cost to the country. He used the word, burden to the society. But we want to make sure people can live and survive now so they can look to retirement. But when we retire, we want to be in a position that we have a semblance of independence, physical as well as financial independence. And I think any question to the government or about the government in relation to any plan or perception of the effectiveness of a plan or no plan should be freely asked, should be asked in a civilized, respectful, respectable manner, with the intent that we try to harness the very best, so that as a people we emerge more unified, much stronger, and a better, more civilized, productive, healthier society. Should not by any semblance be a fantasy or overly idealistic, as Mr. Caudry had shared with us earlier. If we look at Sweden and Finland, Germany, Hong Kong, and other places, are there examples that we can look to and say, hey, that seems to work is there a way we can apply that to Cayman? Or if we look at other jurisdictions and say, wait a minute, that's not working, we should perhaps, make sure that we don't copy that as well. So a quick reminder that at, 2 p.m., we're going to have, instead of the daily press briefing, we'll have our news, but instead of going to the daily press briefing, because the Legislative Assembly, is in session, we're going to have a clinical presentation on COVID-19 by the microbiologist at Health City, Dr. Archito, as well as the medical director at the Health Services Authority, Dr. Delroy Jefferson, and the anesthetist at the Doctors Hospital, Dr. Stephen Gay. So if you want to learn more about it, here are 3 physicians that can give us a perspective. Well, Ms. Susan, we've given you a whole lot of extra work trying to engage our technology platforms. So thank you for taking on the added stress, and to our listeners for sharing with us. We'll get this right, not just the presentations in this way, but as we, put forward the policies and programs for our country. May I ask respectfully that as a people, all of us, whether we intend to retire here and hope to live for generations and have ancestral links, or whether we can't wait to leave, that while we're here, let's be as best as we can, as helpful and respectful as we can. If we wield any sense of authority, whether it's by uniform, let's make sure that we're respectful and respectable. All right, let's go to our news break and then the clinical presentation. Until tomorrow.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by GreenTurtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news.
Access. Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
Cayman Airways says the next repatriation flight from Grand Cayman to Miami, Florida has been confirmed for May 1st in partnership with the Cayman Islands government. One-way tickets for this flight will be available for purchase as of today and can be purchased online at www.caymanairways.com or by calling Cayman Airways reservations on 345-949-2311 between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. weekdays. Good afternoon. I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, police in India have launched a manhunt after a 6-year-old girl was abducted outside her home in Madhya Pradesh state and raped. The attacker inflicted severe injuries to the child's eyes in an apparent attempt to stop her from identifying him. She is in a critical condition in hospital. And more than 26 million Americans have filed for unemployment in the past 5 weeks, over 15% of the U.S. workforce. And small businesses have been hit hard too. A $349 billion loan program for them ran out of money within 2 weeks. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by GreenTurtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Start getting your debt under control with a debt consolidation loan from Fidelity Bank. At Fidelity, your loan decision is quick with no runaround. Plus, with competitive interest rates and fees, we will help you reduce your monthly payments and get you back to living again. Don't let the burden of overwhelming debt tie you down this year. Call Fidelity today and let's make it happen with a Fidelity Bank debt consolidation loan. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special Q&A session with medical doctors, local medical doctors, that is, on the coronavirus. We welcome Drs. Delroy Jefferson from the HSA, Dr. Archita Joshi from Health City, and Dr. Stephen Gay from Doctors Hospital. I'm Donna Bush. I'm your host for today. We also welcome the media via Zoom, as well as our sign language interpreter, Miss Carolyn Powell. Okay, so we're going to begin with Dr. Jefferson. Welcome, Dr. Jefferson, to the panel. Let's begin by telling everyone out there exactly what processes the HSA has gone through as far as it relates to making sure that the hospital and the facility is ready for any patients who may come.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Donna, and thank you for allowing us this opportunity. I want to say on behalf of my colleagues who are here on the platform that it's indeed a pleasure to be able to address the country in this manner. On behalf of the fraternity, I want to say that it's really an honor. You see, we're hoping to bring hope to the community. We're in a very intense situation right now with this COVID pandemic. And fortunately, we've had various physicians within the various facilities coming together to plot a way forward so that the persons within the community could feel comfortable, could feel that there is hope. And also, this today we're hoping to bring some sort of a knowledge to the community so that they can feel relaxed. Before I go into the flow, I just wanted to give the country some general information about where we're at as a country. We've had so far 66 positive coronavirus patients with coronavirus. Of this, well, the age range is between 14 and 85. Average age of 43, 53% have been males, and 48% females, and this is in line with what we see internationally. We've had 11 patients admitted so far. Fortunately for us, we've only had 3 patients who've been admitted to the critical care facility. 2 of whom were ventilated. All of the patients who've been in critical care on the ventilator, we've managed to get off the ventilator, and they're all doing very well. So as a country, we're doing fine. Now, the health sector has, as I mentioned before, has combined efforts. Now, we've had doctors from the Doctors Hospital. We've had doctors from the from the HCCI, and some doctors from the Cayman Islands Medical and Dental Society, who've together recognized that this is a sort of a war, and we have to pull forces together to get all the available armamentarium to attack this virus and to ensure that we are secure as a country. The patients would normally, who normally present, will normally come to the HSA emergency room, or the patients may present at Doctor's Hospital or at Health City. The patients would, depending on their presentation, depending on the severity of their illness, would either be triaged and sent home if they're mildly ill, or if they are moderately ill, kept in the hospital. Moderately ill meaning they need some form of support, hydration, or if they will be needing some oxygen therapy, they'll be kept into the hospital at one of the facilities. Initially, it's intended for these patients to be kept in the respiratory unit at the HSA. There is currently a 5-bedded respiratory unit at the HSA, but that unit, if needs be, could go up to 7 beds. Once that is occupied, the patients will be seen at the Health City Hospital, or we're looking into now, well, we're currently very advanced in setting up what we call an alternate health site, an alternate care site off campus. The patients who require ventilation, require more advanced ventilator support, these will be kept in the critical care unit. We currently have at the HSA a critical care unit that's capable of providing ventilation for 7 patients. But that can be expanded if needs be, because we have enough ventilators on island to support currently 36 patients. And there is some program going on now to get additional ventilators at the HSA. So that's the initial aspect of it. I'm going to move to my colleague who will tell you a little bit more about what happens when we've moved beyond the phase of the HSA.
Okay. Dr. Stephen Gay?
Yes, and when we go beyond the HSA, they take the initial, they're the initial center for dealing with COVID patients. And they have a certain capacity to deal with ventilated patients or just hospitalized non-ventilated patients. And when that capacity has been reached, there's a spillover that goes to the Health City Cayman Islands. And Health City Cayman Islands then goes on to take up in their capacity according to their field. I think Dr. Archita could give us more information on the Health City situation.
Yes, thank you, and greetings to everybody. The phase 2 of a potential surge, if we see patients which are exceeding the capacity, patients who require ventilatory support, and the critical care unit at Health Services Authority is now full, Health City would be taking over these patients. So the ventilated patients or patients requiring ventilation with potential or suspected COVID-19 or confirmed COVID-19 would then be transferred to Health City Cayman Islands Critical Care Unit, where we have earmarked 11 beds in the medical intensive care unit for treatment of such patients. This includes 2 beds with airborne isolation rooms, which is what we understand as a negative pressure isolation room, which would be an ideal circumstance to have such patients in. This is the phase 2. So when the ventilation capacity or the critical care bed capacity is exceeded at Health Services, Health City takes over. In addition to this, there is also a provision where Health City has earmarked around 24 beds, which are ward rooms, 24 ward rooms, where we have central piped oxygen supply and a central vacuum, where patients with suspected or confirmed COVID can be housed. If they do not need critical care but do require hospitalization and admission to a ward level care, and the capacity at Health Services Authority is now full. So Health Services, I believe, has earmarked beds in their medical unit, where the patients who do not require critical care but do require oxygenation or management in a hospital would be placed after their respiratory care unit is full. And Health City similarly has earmarked 24 such rooms. Now, if there is a further surge and we are having a situation where we need more ventilated beds or more hospital beds, I'm sure both hospitals would be collaborating and trying to increase this capacity as we can. Just to make you understand, both hospitals do also have to reserve beds for people who are admitted or who come in for non-COVID related problems. So currently, I believe the surgical unit at Health Services and the first floor ward at Health City is reserved for such patients. And if there is a further surge, I'm sure both hospitals would be able to try and increase the number of beds that could be made available for COVID-19 patients. There is also a small provision to increase the number of ventilators by probably, if the situation comes to that, using some of the anesthesia machines. I believe Health Services has 4, and we have 5 such anesthesia machines which can be used as ventilators. And when this situation does arise that we are running out of beds with ventilation, we would be able to use at least a few of these machines for the purpose of ventilating patients with COVID-19. So these are the phase 2 and phase 3 plans. So if the epidemic were to progress in on our islands, then this is what we can do.
That's correct.
Following which, I'm sure Dr. Gay would want to expand, because that would be the phase 4, where we are looking at where both the centers have exceeded their capacity, and then probably other alternative care sites or a doctor's hospital would want to pitch in.
Yeah, yeah, certainly when we get on to Health City Cayman Islands and Cayman Islands Hospital, getting to their capacity, we move into a situation, a phase 4 situation, as we call it, which is critical surge. And at that point, we certainly are in a zone that we hope to avoid. We don't want to get to that stage where we have exhausted the main health services and health resources. It occurs certainly. What I should say first is that the capacity of Cayman Islands Hospital and the Health City Cayman Islands together is about 27 patients for ventilated cases and 54 patients for non-ventilated cases. And the spillover, when further cases arise, will be going to a dedicated alternate care facility and the Chrissy Tomlinson Hospital. Chrissy Tomlinson's capacity as a 13-bed hospital is not great, but we certainly we certainly have 3 bed spaces that are dedicated for infectious disease with negative pressure rooms. And there are 2 anesthesia machines which can be converted to ventilators should the need arise. Outside of that, other patients that need hospitalization can go to the alternate care facility, as Dr. Jeff was pointing out. And should this happen, the situation will be dire. But the alternate care facility is the alternate care facility should have all the comprehensive aspects of care that are required in any other hospital. And, we need all the nursing staff that you would have for these patients. You need support staff, so you need housekeeping, you need cleaning staff, you need porters, security staff, and dietary staff, dietary personnel, and so on. So, in summary, this 4th phase is really a very a very critical phase where there are high numbers of cases coming in, outstripping the capacity of the hospitals, and indeed we don't want to get there. And it is indeed the reason why our leaders have actually instituted the isolation and containment measures that are currently in place. So this is at phase 4, things are dire, or we're concentrating on just saving lives, and we will be doing the best we can to do so.
Just for clarity, what phase are we currently at?
Currently,
this is phase
very first phase.
Right.
We're at the very early phase, and we're hoping that that's the only phase we'll ever experience.
Right.
I am very optimistic. As my colleague Dr. Gay says, I mean, the government has put in a number of measures to ensure that we never move to phase 2 and 3. And from the look of things, I'm hoping, beyond all hope, that we remain the way we are. We have been very fortunate in the Cayman Islands. I mentioned earlier about the collaboration between the various hospitals. Never before have I seen this degree of coming together of the minds. We've had doctors from the HSA from the early onset. We have a team with Dr. Cummings and Dr. Lundy and a group of others. We've had doctors from Health City. We've had doctors from Doctors Hospital, and together they've really come together to ensure that the literature of the most recent evidence is found. We're fortunate that we've had China going up before us, and we've had Italy, and we've had the United States, and we've seen and learned lessons from them. We've seen what they've done right and what they've done wrong. And we have a group, an army of physicians who are scoring the literature to see what's the best approach so that we can learn from the evidence that's now existing. We will stay in stage 1, phase 1.
Okay, that sounds like a very, very good plan. I'm going to move to members of the media to see if anybody has any questions at this point for the doctors. If not, then we will definitely move on. Anybody from the media have any questions at this point? Okay, we're going to go to Kayla from the Cayman Compass. Kayla, go ahead.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for the presentation today. I wanted to ask about the patients that end up being hospitalized. What is the standard treatment that they're receiving? Are there any types of medication that doctors have found helpful?
Right. Thank you, Kayla. Thanks for that question. There are a number of measures a number of approaches that we're taking. We're going to be going into a little bit more details of the clinical management of these patients. Dr. Archita is going to be addressing some issues relating to the medical management of these patients in the next presentation. So hopefully your questions will be answered then.
Okay, we have a question. Go ahead, Kayla.
I also wanted to ask, do we expect to hear more test results during this presentation or later today?
No.
Okay. And I also wanted to ask about sorry, I'm just pulling up the question that came through to me. Doctors are advising people not to put off emergency treatment. How do we ease people's fears that if they really are in need of medical treatment, that it's safe to go to the hospital despite COVID?
So I'm sure this is a big concern, and this is not just here in the Cayman Islands, but world over. And we've been mentioning in the medical community, people don't stop having heart attacks or strokes just because there is a pandemic going on. So the advice to the general population is that if they do have, emergent medical concerns or they are having some acute symptoms, it is best to seek advice. The safest way to go about would be to call a hospital or call ahead and find out how they should address their symptoms. If these are some mild symptoms which can be addressed, by a physician advising them telephonically or otherwise, that's fine, but that can be done. However, for acute symptoms, like a severe chest pain or suspicion of a stroke or some kind of a major injury, it is best to show up at a hospital. And all measures are being taken at most hospitals to ensure the safety of the patients when they arrive. I can vouch for, at least my center, and I'm sure all of us have put into place infection control policies and procedures, which we will also be talking about shortly, to address and to maintain the safety of course, the patients who come in and also of our healthcare personnel. So most hospitals have defined zones where a patient with COVID suspicion or confirmation would be placed, and there are zones where people with non-COVID related issues who show up at the hospital would be addressed and treated. So I'm quite sure it's very safe, and just because COVID-19 is a pandemic right now doesn't mean we should neglect our other health concerns. There have been unfortunate events of late where we've seen people have delayed their treatment, and that has led to either permanent disability or poor outcomes in their management. So that's not advisable.
Thank you for the response.
Okay, we now go to Wendy from CNS. Wendy?
Thanks, Donna. Can I just clarify? I think it's hard to tell because we can't see people, but I think it was Dr. Jefferson that was talking earlier about the actual numbers and ages and things. Can I just clarify, because I couldn't hear very well? Did he say from age 14, as in a teenager, to 85? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Can you give us a better indication as to the ages? Like, for example, how many of the people that have tested positive were over 60, for example?
I will get the breakdown of the various age ranges for you, and sent there were a relatively even spread. There was a relatively even spread. The ones who were presenting with the more severe illness were patients, by and large, over 50. And
the ones that were sick, the patients that have been sick, do most of them or any of them have underlying health conditions?
Quite a few. That's what we've found. So for all the 11, except for one particular case, for most of those who were admitted in the hospital, they've all, except for one, have had significant comorbidities. They've had significant issues relating to hypertension, diabetes, some pulmonary problems.
Okay, so we're similar to most other countries.
That's correct.
In the world in that respect.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm not sure whether this would also be part of a sort of epidemiology question, I suppose. As physicians, you're obviously studying this, you're looking at the patterns and the shapes, and obviously we have low numbers. But do you believe that we were just lucky enough not to have that many people with the virus when we actually began to lock down? Or is it because we've locked down that the virus is spreading very, very slowly? Or is it even possible to tell that?
That's a very interesting question, and I think it's a combination of both. I think that, to begin with, we've been blessed as a nation to not have had, in the initial period, a large number of persons presenting with COVID. But beyond that, the lockdown has played a tremendous role in ensuring that the spread was contained and that less persons were exposed. So to your question, I think it's a combination of both things.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the clinical management phase, which is point 2. Who should we start with?
Right. Well, I will start with the clinical management aspect. The very first aspect of it has to do with preventing becoming ill. It's about looking after yourself so that we never have to see you as physicians and you can continue with your life. Now, this virus is a very sinister creature, and the information that you hear now, don't be surprised if within another couple of hours it's changed, because it's such it's a creature that